Hello, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Kendall Hunt Publishing. Are you looking for ways to guide dissertations that bridge academic rigor with practical application? Then you're in the right spot. Our expert panelist, Dr. Bunnie Claxton, will explain her practical methodology that enables researchers to improve outcomes across diverse fields, from healthcare and education to business and aviation, by engaging knowledgeable participants and delivering actionable solutions. Today's presentation is being recorded, and you'll be sent a link in the coming day or two. Dr. Claxton would like this presentation to be interactive, so please use the chat or Q&A functions to ask your questions. I'll then collate them and read them to Bunnie at the end. At this time, I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. Bunnie Claxton. Dr. Claxton, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for having me today. I'm excited to talk about this topic.
You look and sound great.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for deciding to join us today as we talk about breaking the attrition code and what we can do to help doctoral candidates to be successful in their doctoral program. We've got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in. Now, on the agenda of today is I'm going to teach you a little bit about myself just so that you know the experience that I have, and this is what I will be talking from today is the experience I have with doctoral programs and doctoral candidates. We're going to talk about this all but dissertation, and we're going to talk about evidence-based strategies that you can use at your university to help your students to retain in their program and to graduate from it. So first of all, my education, I got my doctorate degree at Liberty University. I got my undergrad from the University of Georgia, and I have a higher education teaching certificate from Harvard. I own a company called Dissertation Research Specialist, and at that company, I specialize in working with universities to help them build doctoral programs. I do course development, faculty training, but I would say maybe my most valuable experience here is working directly with the doctoral candidates as a coach and an editor, because that's what's given me the insight that I've needed to know what we need to do to help these doctoral candidates, because they are very candid with me about the experiences that they are going through. I'm an adjunct instructor and also a dissertation chair. I've taught 35 different courses. You can see the ones on the left-hand side. These are all doctoral level courses that I've taught. I've been the subject matter expert of 10 different courses, and 8 of those 10 have been specific to dissertation research. I have developed 38 courses, and 36 of those courses have been related specifically to the dissertation, the doctoral process and the dissertation. I'm the author of 23 textbooks with more on the way. Most of these are related to doctoral research. I'm an international speaker. This past summer, I spoke at Oxford University and Cambridge University. Next week, I'll be speaking at the International Conference on Future Teaching and Education that's being hosted in Geneva, Switzerland. And then in December, I will be speaking on the same topic at the World Conference on Teaching and Learning in Germany. That'll be in Berlin. And then in February, I'll be teaching this same topic at the World Conference on Research in the Netherlands. This summer, I also served as a peer reviewer for AERA, the American Education Research Association, and I'll be doing the same thing for applied research for them for their annual meeting in the summer of 2026. It's going to be in Los Angeles. So now I want to get into talking about what you came here to talk about, the all but dissertation and what we can do to help these doctoral candidates. So ABD, what is it? It is all but dissertation. So these doctoral candidates, they've completed all of their required coursework. They have passed any preliminary examinations that they have at the school, and they've passed the comprehensive examinations. But what they can't do and haven't done is they have not completed their dissertation. So let's look at some rates. Of the overall U.S. doctoral completion rates, 56.6% complete within 10 years, which means that 43.4% do not complete at all. So almost a 50% rate of students do not pass. 20% complete their doctorate in 7 years, which is still a long time. And of course, the rates vary vastly across disciplines. So specific fields, engineering at year 10 has the highest attrition rate at 31% of engineering students. Life sciences has the earliest peak of the highest attrition rate, which is 29%. So basically a third of engineering students and a third of life science students have the highest and the earliest peak rate. Now, internationally, data consistently show that 40 to 50% that rate of ABD. So this isn't just a US issue. This is a global issue, which does suggest that there are systemic challenges or systematic challenges across education systems. So the critical findings here, nearly half of doctoral candidates do not complete their programs. Field variations do exist, but all disciplines face substantial attrition rates. Completion rates are less likely the longer the doctoral candidates are in the program, which tells us we need to do something about getting them to be successful earlier in their program. And the students, they already succeed at their coursework. So they've already shown that they're capable of doctoral level work. They just can't get through that dissertation process. So the key insight here is the ABD status. It is often a symptom of systematic issues in doctoral programs rather than an individual student failure. So the implications here, the dissertation phase, that's what represents the most challenging aspect of doctoral programs. So what can we do about that? That's really what you're here to learn today. We want to talk about what can we do for these doctoral candidates. Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to determine what is causing attrition. So there are candidate causes for sure. Sometimes it's stress. Most of these doctoral candidates have full-time jobs, they have families, and they're also trying to work on their doctorate at the same time, which is very challenging, very stressful. The longer they're in these programs, the more fatigue tends to set in. So again, getting them through the process in less than 7 years, certainly not 10 years, would be ideal. Some of them run out of funds. If they are repeating courses, especially because they can't pass certain courses, oftentimes in the proposal stage, they're repeating courses. And so they run out of money. Now, sometimes they're perfectionists and they're their own stumbling block, and they just can't seem to get through because they feel like they need to be perfect. Procrastination. Oftentimes, procrastination is not because they are just naturally a procrastinator, but because they may get sick. They may have family members who are sick. Life happens. They have family. They have jobs. And so just by prioritizing their time, oftentimes the dissertation just doesn't come first. And so they procrastinate. Sometimes it is a lack of self-discipline, but really what we do in most universities with this lack of self-discipline is in the proposal stage and really the whole dissertation, we have them complete this as an independent study. So not only do they have to be self-disciplined, but they have to manage their time. And when you think about writing 3 chapters, this proposal of a dissertation all by yourself, and just sitting down at night after you've already had a long day of work and you've done the family thing at night, and now you have to work on a dissertation, it's just really tough. So there are some candidate causes to attrition, and some there's nothing we can do about. However, we can look at the institutional causes and see what we can do from the institutional perspective. So some causes here: leadership and professor attrition can be a cause. A lack of consistency across courses can certainly be a cause. A lack of guidance and support, and oftentimes a lack of resources. So let's talk about each of these in more detail, because I think this is probably what most of you came here to learn today, is what can we do as an institution. So the first thing is we can provide leadership and professor retention by working on a few things. First, we need to provide ongoing faculty training to our faculty who are dissertation chairs or who are teaching the courses that are specifically related to the dissertation. Some universities want to give a one-time onboarding training and then maybe, a email every once in a while. But there's not a consistent faculty training plan in place to consistently train the chairs on maybe even changes in the program, not let alone ones that already exist. So we need to provide this ongoing faculty training. We need to provide the faculty with this guidance that is specific to the dissertation. We need to give them reasonable workloads, and we need to pay them reasonably. We need to compensate them for the work that they do. This is doctoral level research, which requires a specific special skill. And so we need to compensate them. And then we need to recognize their accomplishments. I'm not sure that we ever get so old that it doesn't feel good for someone to recognize when we've achieved something. And so we want to make sure that we're working on retaining our leaders. Oftentimes, I have seen doctoral programs that have a leader in place, and the leader of the doctoral office leaves for whatever reason. They might have gotten a promotion or moved to a different department, but they leave, and with them goes their vision for the doctoral program. So someone new comes in, and this new person has a good idea for a doctoral program, and they start to implement their process, which can take a long time to do. So they're starting through this process of redeveloping the doctoral program, and then for whatever reason, they leave and someone else comes in. And so there's this perpetual system of redevelopment that's going on. And so there's not a set system in place, and it's frustrating for the professors who are constantly having to learn new guidelines and new requirements, and for the doctoral candidates who are caught in this process, who started under maybe one certain set of guidelines, and now they have a different set of guidelines. So we need to try to keep our leadership, and we need to try to keep our professors. We need to retain them, and we need to reward them, and we need to train them. Very important. Now, we also need to provide for the second challenge, the consistency across courses. Now, we said that doctoral candidates have shown proficiency in coursework. So before they get to the dissertation stage, they have clear deadlines. Oftentimes, this is those weekly assignments. They're given to them on Monday and they're due on Sunday night. So they have very clear guidelines. They're given this consistent, regular feedback. Every week, they're getting feedback from their professor. There are structured assignments. We tell them, this is what you need to do this week, and this is due at the end of the week. And sometimes they have peer interactions. This can be with discussion posts, and it can be meeting with a professor sometimes, but they do have some peer interactions. And then they have this professor guidance. So they have this professor there who they feel like they can email and get a question answered. So their coursework is oftentimes very different than when they get to the dissertation phase. I'm not sure where this comes from, or we feel like doctoral candidates should be able to write a proposal, a research proposal independently, all by themselves without any help from anyone or much help. But that seems to be very prevalent. So if we rethink this proposal, especially part of the dissertation, they're having to come up with their own self-imposed deadlines in many cases. Oftentimes they're getting infrequent feedback, and it's unstructured. I have actually, when I was telling you about mentoring these doctoral candidates and coaching them, I've had a doctoral candidate a couple weeks ago who said, my professor just told me to go online and find a dissertation that I liked and mimic what that person did. And I said, well, you didn't get any kind of like a handbook or a template or anything? And she said, no, I didn't. And so I could understand her frustration. She had no idea where to go and what to do. So this unstructured research, especially for the proposal, is very difficult for doctoral candidates to grasp onto exactly what they're supposed to do. Again, they've never written a proposal before. And oftentimes they're doing this in isolation. Sometimes there are no discussion posts in the dissertation phase, and so they do feel somewhat isolated, and they're oftentimes given minimal guidance. So consistency across courses, to talk about what the solution here is. If you look on the right-hand side, this is where the dissertation is done as an independent study. That's currently what many institutions are doing. And there's a 50% failure rate in this dissertation model. So what can we do to help the students to be successful? Well, the solution to this all but dissertation rate is that we need to work on our doctoral programs. What if we rethink this process and at least for the proposal, which they've never done before, what if we give them structured deadlines and we give them weekly assignments with weekly feedback? They're kind of continuing what they did in their coursework, so they're used to this model. So they're getting this weekly feedback. There are specific structured, there's a research plan here. We're giving them the template for their dissertation, and we're saying this is essentially your goal. You need to fill out this entire dissertation template, and we're going to show you how to do it. And we're going to do this through structured assignments with weekly feedback and planned interactions. What if we do give them this specific guidance that they need? I would say that this is going to help with that ABD rate. Now, guidance and support. So let's talk about this. What if we provided them with a comprehensive orientation? So not only are we going to give them, especially through the proposal, these weekly assignments that they're going to work on and this weekly feedback, but for our faculty, we're going to require our faculty to set up a meeting. When they become a chair, you're going to meet with your candidates corporately. If you work with 5, you meet with all 5. You work with 10, you meet with all 10 the first week of the course. You introduce yourself, you let them introduce themselves to one another, and you start to build that relationship right there at the very, very beginning. Now the students are not working in isolation, and they have somewhat of a support team there. They can support one another so that everything doesn't fall on the faculty member, but the leadership does, the guidance does. So that leader, that chair is setting these clear expectations and a warm welcome environment right from the beginning of their dissertation. We give them early advising and immediate chair assignment and engagement. I have literally had students that I have coached say to me, I've never met with my chair. Well, how long have you been working with them? I've been working with them for 3 terms now, almost a year, and they've never met with their chair. I've had students who said, well, I don't think my chair has any idea who I am. Every time he emails me, it often, well, not every time, but most times it has a different student's name in it. So I'm not even sure that he knows who I am or if I'm supposed to be getting that email. And so for the students, for them to know that their professor knows who they are and cares that they graduate, it does make a difference. It is encouraging to them. What if we were to give them dissertation handbooks with clear guidelines? And this handbook that we give the students is also used by the professor. That way, everyone is working from the same information, the same set of guidelines. Regular process reviews. This is where we're talking about those weekly assignments and that weekly feedback. They're getting consistently evaluated so they know where they stand in the process. If they're behind or if they're doing it wrong, they know early on, not after they've written the first 3 chapters of their dissertation, and then the chair just rips it apart because it was done wrong, according to the chair. So in this feedback, we're going to give them this actionable and encouraging feedback. For the resources, we need a systematic approach to developing a doctoral program. So we need to give them dissertation handbooks where we're communicating the precise guidelines that everyone needs to go by. So let's say, for example, they're conducting a qualitative study and they need to interview participants. Well, we need to give them the guidelines for how many. Do they need to interview 10, 12, 15? What are those guidelines? The dissertation handbook is what's going to tell them that. And we give this to the professor and the student, so everyone is working from the same playbook. And we have this systematic course development. Now, we talk about scaffolding quite often in a K-12 environment where we're going to teach students numbers. And when we do that, we teach them the numbers and then the value of the numbers. Then we teach them how to add and then subtract and then multiply and then divide. There's this logical sequence that we use to teach them numbers. We need to take that same approach with the dissertation. We need to give them scheduled submissions. For that proposal, it should not be an independent study. The time for a doctoral candidate to transition from student to scholar is when they have defended their proposal and they are collecting and analyzing their data independently. That's when they're ready to become the scholar in their field, not necessarily in the proposal stage, because again, they've never done this before. So program development, this needs to be consistent course development across research methods, the program, and the institution. From an institutional perspective, when the programs are developed systematically, it's much easier to run from a business perspective. So with the dissertation handbooks, in here, we're going to give them the guidelines. This one happens to be for applied research. We're going to give them the policies, the dissertation guidelines, and the steps to conducting their research. And in this handbook, we're even going to give them the dissertation template we want them to use. And again, the professor and the student is going to have this. And what if we do this across all of our research methods? So we have qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods, applied, whatever research methods that your institution uses, you're doing this consistently across methods. And you're also doing this consistently across your university. Now, what if we also gave them not the handbook only, but what if we gave them a coordinating textbook that told them how to fill out that dissertation template? So we give them the dissertation handbook that gives them the guidelines that they need as far as the data collection and analysis and the steps. And we give them the textbook that says, this is how you're going to fill out your dissertation template. We do this across methods, and we do this across the university. You can see the system here. Now, inside the textbooks, we give them explicit instructions on how to write their dissertation. So, for example, this one happens to be about the abstract, and this is from the applied research book. This is how to write the abstract. In this part, we tell them exactly what we want them to do to write their abstract. Then we give them an example. And again, this example comes from the applied research dissertation template. This is the example that they will see, so they know exactly what we want them to do. And then we give them a checklist to make sure that they did everything we told them to do in their abstract. And we do this for every part of their dissertation. We've given them the tools that they need to be successful in their dissertation process. Now, here you can see these are textbooks that I've written. The first one is a step-by-step introduction to research methods. This one's meant to teach the doctoral candidates a little bit about qualitative, a little bit about quantitative, a little bit about mixed methods, and a little bit about applied research. That way they know, based on the research topic that they are interested in, which method would be the best way for them to collect data. So they use that textbook first. And then there's one here for writing a literature review for doctoral research. This is the one I would say that I have to coach students on the most, is writing a literature review. These students, we have to think, have gone through a system, many of them, where they have been programmed to choose from ABCD. They haven't necessarily been taught how to write, especially from a research academic perspective. And so we need to teach them explicitly how you do this. Now, one thing that's really popular right now in universities is project-based research. And there are project-based research textbooks available. There's the applied research is already available. You can see over here on the right a step-by-step guide to conducting business research. Inside this book, it contains the instructions for applied research and action research. This one will be available in the spring. It's not available yet, but it is at the publisher. There's another one that's coming that is a step-by-step guide to conducting music research. And again, this is project-based. And I actually happen to be looking for a few authors to collaborate with, and you can see the topics down here. These books will have in counseling, education, engineering, government, healthcare, medical field, family and consumer sciences. What we're trying to do here is to teach doctoral candidates how to conduct research at a specific site where they can solve a problem or improve a practice at their site using the research process. Now, one thing that's always puzzled me is, why do we wait until they're in a doctoral program to talk about qualitative and quantitative research? I'm not sure why we do that, but These master level books are also coming, and these are going to be micro applied research, micro action, micro qualitative, micro quantitative. We're going to teach them at the master's level how to do this as well. And it's that scaffolding approach to teaching. If we can get our doctoral candidates in the master's program and can teach them these skills on a micro level, hopefully they'll retain in our doctoral program and they can continue that on a larger scale research project when they get to our doctoral programs. So if we give these students what they need, and we have this increased leadership and professor retention, and we provide consistency across our courses and the guidance and support that they need, along with the resources, then we can set our doctoral candidates up for success. We can eliminate the barriers that are within our own systems that are keeping the doctoral candidates from getting through the dissertation process, and we can increase our graduation rates. These books are literally used around the world and are having a global impact on dissertation research. The students are graduating at a much higher success rate than the 50% that many of the universities are experiencing right now. And so this is an evidence-based approach to solving the high attrition rate that we're seeing right now. So I would love to dialogue with any of you who would like to talk, and it'd be great if somebody shared. One of my candidates actually shared this model with me, this 3-2-1 model. If you want to email me, you see my email information is here on the screen. 3 things you learned today, 2 strategies that you'll use, and then maybe 1 thing I should know. So if you want to contact me, I would love to hear from you so we can continue the conversation. I love talking about research. I can talk about it all day long. But I want to thank you for joining today. And I think there are some questions. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for me.
That sounds great. That was wonderful. I love the idea of handbooks. Equal playing field for every student, every professor. It's great. With as busy as you are, you talked about going to all these different countries. How involved are you with doctoral students at the moment?
Well, I work with doctoral students as often as I can. It's not nearly as often now as it used to be when I initially started. I was able to gain a wealth of information from them, and I still like talking to them and hearing what their struggles are, so that I can understand from their perspective what I can do at the university level to help universities to better meet their needs. And a big part of that is just what we've talked about today is faculty training. It's program development, and it's developing across an institution. I know an institution right now it's a massive institution, and they're going back and redeveloping their doctoral programs because over time they've all been developed in a very different way. And it's not to say that those ways are not effective, but from a management position, it's very difficult for them to manage, and it's a very painful process to go back and redevelop across an entire university. And so that this having the system in place as early as possible can help eliminate a lot of those pain points. And so I'm happy to be involved with the universities as much as they need me to be. I do provide course development, program development, faculty training, all of those things I'm happy to help with.
Do you have suggestions for program development that best prepare students for dissertation writing, such as course learning outcomes, assessments, rubrics?
Oh, absolutely. I think that it's incredibly important to have the courses that are set up so that the student can complete the dissertation, not as an independent study, but as actual assignments. And that I can work with universities on that, on helping them to come up with the assignments that they need for the students to be able to complete their dissertation in a timely manner and in a way that does help them to be more of an independent learner. When you set them up with the right resources like the handbook and the textbook, it does allow them to do a lot more of their work independently. The other thing that it does is when everyone is going by the same guidelines, it eliminates a lot of the subjectivity that oftentimes gets interjected into the process. That can be incredibly frustrating for the student because they might not know that their chair's pet peeve is, the theoretical framework. They may not know that until they've written it and they've submitted it to their professor, and then their professor just rips it apart. So if we put the guidelines in place up front, everyone is going by the same guidelines. I've actually worked with students who have submitted their papers and they've had one theoretical framework that was beautifully developed and it just explained exactly what they were doing in their research, very well connected. And I've had another student who submitted a framework that had 11 different theories that were represented. Total overkill, a lot of work and not necessary, but there was no guidance given to the student that, you should only use one or two or three or however many the institution wants to put in place. That's your handbook. But there was no guidance given. And so the student did 11. I've had other students who've submitted a 15-page literature review, others a 52-page literature review at the same institution. Again, there weren't guidelines put in place for the students. Oftentimes there's a minimum, not necessarily a maximum, but when you go too long in a literature review, it oftentimes becomes redundant. And then they've done a lot of extra work that they didn't need to do. It'd be better to write it concisely. But you have to put in those parameters up front for the student to know and for the professor to know. And again, that's the handbook and the textbook that works together to keep everyone on the same page. That with that faculty training in mind, so that again, that those professors are they're hearing what the expectations are. It just makes it an easier process and a more enjoyable process for everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you have ideas to encourage the peer-to-peer interaction?
Oh, absolutely, I do. I actually host a Facebook group, and in that group, there are professors and there are doctoral candidates. I think there may be 1,200 students and professors in there right now. And it offers them a safe space. They can go to that Facebook page and I will answer questions for them. They can post them. There are no stupid questions in there. They can ask whatever they want and we answer it. We celebrate when someone defends, we celebrate together, and that encourages other doctoral candidates to keep going in the journey. So I think to keep people from feeling isolated, they do need to join groups. But I think it's important which groups that they join, because I actually started mine because of one that I was a member of that what I saw was just full of negativity and misinformation, and the students were being misguided, and it was frustrating for the students, frustrating for professors when wrong information is out there for the doctoral candidates. And so in the group that I'm in, we do our best to make sure it stays positive and it stays encouraging, and that we're giving as accurate of information as we possibly can. So I encourage professors to do the same thing. Host a social media group for your doctoral candidates and encourage them to talk to one another. I think that not feeling isolated is really important for doctoral candidates, especially, I mean, most of them are going to be in an online program, so it will just be them. And it does help to have somewhere you can go to ask questions other than your chair. I mean, if you think about it, most doctoral candidates want to impress their chair. They want their chair to think that they are really smart. So they don't want to ask their professor a question that might make them think that was a stupid question. And so if they have somewhere outside of the professor to go, I mean, the professor should certainly encourage questions and build that relationship so the students don't feel that way. But I do think it's also good to have another avenue, another place you can go to ask questions where you can get an accurate answer. It's the accurate answer that's really important. I cannot tell you how many times I see people giving inaccurate information. And oftentimes it's just based on their experience. It's not that they're trying to mislead or steer someone in the wrong direction. It's just that maybe the guidelines have changed since they graduated from the university. So what they're saying now was true when they were in school, but is not true any longer. So great question.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. Attendees, I will be sending out the recording in the next day or two. We're getting lots of positive feedback on the chat. Dr. Claxton, I want to thank you for your time. This has been wonderful.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking about this. So this was quite a treat for me. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And I look forward to hopefully talking to many of you in the future.
Sounds great. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.